Now, a 7-day ultimatum has been given to President Bola Tinubu by the Nigeria Labour Congress to reverse what it calls the all anti-poor people policies, which include the price of premium motor spirit or petrol. This was made known in a communique at the end of his Central Working Committee meeting, where the union threatened to embark on a total and indefinite strike from Wednesday, August 2. NLC President Joe Ajero co-signed the communique, and the union's General Secretary Emmanuel Ugwaja, according to the NLC, the federal government has shown enormous disdain and contempt for the Nigerian people and has declared a war of attrition on Nigerian workers in masses. The labor union said since the president's subsidy is gone forever, speech on Inauguration Day on May 29, the peace of mind of Nigerians has gone. Yeah, before I bring in my guest, let's bring you this story. Recall yesterday we had the Emefiele, DSS, and of course Nigerian Prison Correctional imbroglio, where we also tried to reach the DSS at that point in time. Now the DSS has finally reached out, talking about the incident between its operatives, saying that it has begun investigations into the incident between its operatives and those of the Nigerian Correctional Service during the arraignment of the suspended CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele. In a release signed by its public relations officer, Dr. Peter Afunaya, the service says the investigations are to identify the role played by specific persons and undertake disciplinary actions if necessary. Although the DSS says the incident was unfortunate and does not reflect the professional disposition of the service, it claims it has not broken any laws in handling the Emefiele case. We're also still open to listening to the DSS come on the Arise Prime Time to speak to us more on these, as Nigerians are waiting to hear from that organization. Well, for more on the strike action by the Nigerian Labour Congress, I'm joined live in the studio by Benson Upah, who is the head of information and public affairs. Good to see you and thanks for your time.
Good to meet you, Suleiman.
You know, for a while, many Nigerians have thought that Labour, the Labour unions, have abandoned Nigerians. They were, handing gloves with the government, trying to suffocate the masses and not allowing them breathe, just as the president had advised. Now, let us in on how the labor unions finally reached out on this decision to fight back on behalf of the people.
Well, quite simple. You recall on his inauguration day, May 29th, right at the Eagle Square, while the dust was said to settle from the hooves of the horses that carried the cavalry troops. Mr. President announced with all candor, if you don't mind, I also add, if you don't mind, I added that with all the arrogance a president could carry, that subsidy is gone and is gone. It was so cavalier. At the time he was doing that, subsidy was expected to run till the end of June. So he was breaching the Appropriation Act. And you know the consequence of breaching the Appropriation Act is an impeachable offense. If a president violates the Appropriation Act without recourse to the National Assembly, it's a very serious offense. He did that. 2 or 3 days afterwards, the NNPC raised the pump price of PMS. It was staggered. At Abuja here, 530 something naira per liter. Of course, we were all alarmed, like other Nigerians, and we sounded out. I will give out a notice that we will protest against this. Nigerians were outraged and were waiting. But when government, in good conscience, reached out to us, we said, okay, let's listen to the government. And we had a meeting at the villa. There were 2 meetings, principally speaking.
Yeah.
And The second meeting, while it was holding, government acted in bad faith and procured, by way of procuring a restraining order from the court to stop the protest, while it lured us into the villa to be negotiating. And Suleiman, let me tell you this, even the process of that service was deficient in law. You do not unilaterally do substituted service. You got to obtain that through the leave of the court. They didn't come to serve us notice and we rejected it, but they came in a truck, 3 truckloads of policemen, and they came and pasted that notice while negotiations, while we were holding conversation in the villa. Nonetheless, we said, for the benefit of Nigerians, let us listen to government for everybody's sake. And after our conversations, we eventually agreed, and I'm going to read verbatim to you briefly.
Go ahead.
The government and TUC and LC to establish a joint committee to review the proposal for any wage increase or award and establish a framework and timeline for implementation. 2, the federal government, the TUC and LC to review World Bank Finance Cash Transfer Scheme and propose inclusion of low-income earners in the program. The federal government, the TUC and LC to revive the CNG conversion program earlier agreed with labor centers in 2021 and work out detailed implementation and timing. 4, the labor centers and federal government to review issues hindering effective delivery in the education sector and propose solutions for implementation. 5, the labor centers and the federal government to review and establish the framework for completion of the rehabilitation of the nation's refineries.
Okay.
6, the federal government to provide a framework for the maintenance of roads and expansion of rail networks across the country. And finally, all other demands submitted by TUC, the federal government, will be assessed by the Joint Committee. So you could see that these were issues that cut across not just workers, every Nigerian. And we signed. And looking back now, we are glad that we signed this document. Had we not signed it, that some elements today would have been saying labor busybody. If they had they allowed the government, the outcome would have been good. We signed, and what has the outcome become? First and foremost, government acted in breach. It didn't keep to any of these agreements. 2, barely a month after, prices went up. Okay? Government did not accept liability. NNPC did not accept liability. They say it was market forces. Who are market forces, or which are market forces? Nigerians became alarmed and found out that this journey has no destination.
But again, we'll come back to why labor is now, ready to fight.
I'll give you the answer if you want it now.
No. I'll save that for later.
Okay.
Because I'm not done with this yet. And it has to do with, at what point did you think that the explanations, because when they spoke about market forces, recall the country has a weak naira, and we've also seen an increase in the barrel of petroleum product across the world. So, and knowing full well that this definitely will have a ripple effect to what pricing you'll be getting. And for the first time, you're getting to see more people in a long time getting into the procurement of petroleum product alongside NNPC. So these are the forces they spoke about. Did Labour also try to investigate to see if this actually made any sense?
First, let me just explain this to you. No, I've made this point, and I'm going to repeat it here. No government, no reasonable government acting reasonably leaves its national currency to the forces of the market. Even if that government happens to be Chinese government, which manufactures virtually everything under the sun. You must never, ever, if you do, there will be unintended consequences. When the government of Nigeria, when this government decided to leave its naira to the forces of the market, the first thing that happened was that our debt stock moved that day from 72 trillion to 81 trillion naira. 9 trillion. meaning that we will have to, our debt service obligation also rose. Okay? Why would you do that? You don't sell anything beyond the crude oil since 1958 to date that you've not been able to crack and market out. When you crack the crude, you're going to have a minimum of 4 byproducts. Of course, it is endless. From PMS to kerosene to all the other entities and so on, and then to the sludge. We've not been able to do that. We don't sell anything. For the countries that manipulate their currency, that devalue when they want, is because they want their products and services to be competitive in the international market. We're not selling anything beyond crude, and crude oil sells in dollars. So why would you devalue your naira? And they tried to criminalize the previous administration by saying that it ran multiple exchange rates. Any reasonable central bank governor must be able to manage their currency with subtlety and wisdom, and not leave it to the forces of the market. You can now see what the forces of the market are doing to us. Let me tell you, and let me also tell you this.
Are you giving
Suleiman,
credit,
let me tell you this.
credit now to Buhari administration and
yes,
Emefiele at CBN?
Unabashedly, yes, because
so we're missing Buhari now.
We have started missing him. And for those who are saying, the end of Nigeria was Buhari, I say, I kept reminding them, I said, look, you cannot, it's not fair to assess any leader based on what the leader did or failed to do. You must extend it to what those who succeed him do or fail to do. Okay? In fact, there are skits. Now, social media, some people carry crying, oh, Buhari, where are you? I have some here on my listing. The man has not left after 2 months. So, you see? So, nobody. But Buhari tried to manage this. At a point, he did ask. He said, if you devalue the naira to this extent, what are we going to gain from it? Nobody was able to explain this to him. And you also remember, in spite of the tremendous pressure, I'm not a Buhari spokesperson. He had competent, and he still does have competent spokespersons for him. He refused to do this. A new president coming in, who still had 1 month to consult with the critical stakeholders, within which now to put in place.
But
Suleiman, let me line.
Because we're closing. We're trying to wind down.
Good.
Because some of the talk out there by Nigerians is that Labour decided to back down because Labour is a big friend of the president.
There is nothing. In fact, it is a pride to be a friend of any president. Okay, but I want to tell you that Labour decided not to protest the first time because when they sat down, don't forget that Labour sounded a notice, gave a notice, we are going on protest. And government said, come, let us talk. And we went and the government talked. And among the things that we put on the table is that we are going to have an alternative to PMS, and it's CNG, compressed natural gas. And we have an entity known as Innocent Motors that has capacity to do this, to convert our vehicles and to also manufacture new vehicles that will consume a CNG. The equivalent of CNG to a liter, that price is about 190 to 100 naira. While PMS was going for 530 naira. And we met, in fact, with Innocent Motors. And let me tell you this, it was not the first meeting. There was an earlier agreement in 2020 with government involved that there was going to be a process of conversion so that we could have choices, not only relying on PMS, we could also rely on CNG. In Brazil, for instance, virtually every vehicle has 2 tanks. If you want PMS, if you want your fuel from sugarcane and the rest is there. Another country. It's only here that we rely on one source, virtually one source. PMS.
So what's the way out quickly now?
Now the way out is that the way out of our own protest now, because all we're trying to do is give leadership. Nigerians have been on us, crying, called us names, but this time around, because government failed to even, on their own agreement, on an MOU, it voluntarily co-drafted and signed. He failed to act on it. Government started going. In fact, a government considered itself into autocracy, if you don't mind my using the word.
This government?
Oh yes, by acting,
Tinubu administration.
Yeah, by acting in defiance of what it wrote and signed here. So we say no. You cannot violate this. You cannot act in breach of this. We said we are going to work on subsidies and things like this. Government was comfortable with say, okay, we're going to give 8,000 naira to families, 12 million families. 8,000 is, for instance, is an insult. But in any case, 12 million families, whereas our own MBS said 133 million Nigerians were fundamentally poor. By the devaluation of the naira and by the increase in the pump price of PMS, about 200 million Nigerians now are fundamentally poor, and more are about to join them. So how 12 million, and you want to target 12 million with 8,000. Meanwhile, you have appropriated, or you agree to appropriate 70 billion for National Assembly members who are not up to 450 people. You have also agreed to appropriate to the judiciary 35 billion. Calculate this on the base per person, whatever, and you are 12, and you are focusing on 12 million Nigerians with 8,000. For goodness sake, can 8,000 take you to the office for up to 2 days? Answer me, Suleiman. So we consider it an insult. It has become a sin to be poor, to be an ordinary worker in this country. And we're going to say no. We have the numbers, even if we don't have the money.
Now with the ultimatum, has the presidency reached out to Labour?
On the ultimatum, I cannot say no. But on the ultimatum, I will say no. On the ultimatum, to the best of my knowledge, no. But on the steering committee, the government suddenly remembered that the steering committee should be meeting. Okay, and I think a meeting is going on this very moment. I could not be part of that.
Okay, because of and Benson Upah, I'd like to thank you for your time. But again, before you leave, we have the latest, and the latest has just come in here on Arise Prime. The Presidential Council on Subsidy Removal has met with organized labor. The primary focus of that meeting was to expedite interventions aimed at minimizing the impact of the subsidy removal, as you can see on your television, which comes amid the labor union's announcement of planned protests set to begin next week on Wednesday. The Government Council's spokesperson lauded the meeting as a productive one. However, labor union representatives clarified that the meeting did not pertain to the second hike in the petrol prices, specifically the increase of 617 naira per litre. They affirmed their dedication to proceed with the planned protest as previously announced. The meeting is to reconvene on Friday.
Well, the outcome is very brief. We met based on a 520 increase, and the committee that was set based on that, and we agreed to work to realize the objectives that was set during that moment.
Nigerians are very worried that government made promise to workers to provide palliatives, but it's taking a long time. What's the position of the labor unions on this?
The two centers have made their position known and is before Nigerians. The TUC, the NLC, our position is known and is public knowledge.
Well, that's the latest, and of course, some other information that we should also share with you is that our debt is not denominated in dollars, and of course, we don't need dollars to pay our naira debt. Our dollar-denominated debt will be paid from dollar earnings. But again, quickly give us your comment on what you just saw, since you were not able to be a part of that meeting.
Yeah, I think my comment cannot be far from what the President of the Congress has said. That is my comment. But speaking further on this, school fees, rents, transportation costs, food items, everything has gone up. In fact, we are finding it difficult to recognize our country. You know, the pain is palpable and is deep, and it cuts across the strata of the country. In this matter, there is no religion, there is no region, there is no ethnicity, there is no class. Everybody is affected except those who have the opportunity of stealing directly from the national till. If not, everybody is complaining. So there's something wrong. But I want to tell you this, Suleiman.
Quickly, please.
Yes. Other countries are subsidizing their energy consumption. The US is spending $10 billion. Quote me, Germany and the rest, Germany, France, and so why is it a crime to do subsidy in Nigeria? Our statement has been, Mr. President should deal with the criminal content of subsidy. They know those who have been stealing us blind, who are taking our crude oil. 23 billion, KPMG said $23 billion of crude oil will be stolen. The same guys are the ones screaming us up in PMS. Mr. President should go after this instead of going after the poor.
Well, it's a fine place for us to leave it, and we do hope that that big question is not rhetorical. It needs an answer from the presidency and the president. Benson Upah, many thanks for speaking with us here on Arise Prime Time.
My pleasure.